The Department of Defense, the Defense Industrial Base, and the nation's critical infrastructure all face challenges in supply chain risk management assurance. These diverse challenges span infrastructure, trust, competitiveness, and austerity. Beginning with acquisition, where supply chain foundations are laid, supply chain risk management assurance extends into operations and sustainment. Supply chains are essential to global competitiveness and national security. Consequently, a supply chain risk management assurance framework will be produced, refined, and sustained. In addition, its rollout and maturity of adoption will be measured. To encourage adoption and motivate maturity progress, appropriate public policy measures will be sought. The scope of supply chain spans technology and innovation, economics and competitiveness, national security, and global challenges strategies. Supply chains are consequential, and their assurance is essential. Adoption of the supply chain risk management assurance framework is voluntary, but may require public policy incentives. Supply chains in the wild are intrinsically risky, vulnerable to cybercrime and cloud computing risks, as well as organizational neglect and unmet needs. The practice of risk management using smart and trusted tactics is necessary because software-based supply chains are inherently insecure. The risks and uncertainties are prolific, and vulnerabilities abound. The combination of unmet needs, industry neglect, and austerity, coupled with the immature state of software, cybersecurity, and cloud computing infrastructure, yield a rich environment of uncertainty and risk. Supply chains are complex. Just as one thing leads to another, in supply chains many things must lead to one thing, despite event threats and external factors. Supply chain cost and quality service level agreements may be threatened as Tier 2 and Tier 3 nodes populate the network with uncertain chain of custody and provenance. Unanticipated global and external threat events make their appearance, and cybersecurity threats insinuate the supply chain network through unprotected Tier 2 and Tier 3 nodes. Beyond that, the Chief Procurement Officer, CPO, serves as the principal single point of failure threatening resiliency. The objective of rolling out the supply chain risk management assurance framework is to advance the assurance of smart and trusted risk management principles and practices useful and essential for military, government, critical industries, and commercial industry. The benefit of the supply chain risk management assurance framework will be to elevate the expert application of risk management principles and practices in order to reduce uncertainty in the assurance of software-intensive supply chains through the use of smart and trusted tactics designed to deliver consequential outcomes in assuring supply chain trustworthiness, security, resilience, product integrity, coordination, control, and flexibility. The criteria for success of the supply chain risk management assurance framework lies in the rate of adoption by supply chain owners and operators, followed by their progressive advancement in supply chain risk management assurance maturity. 5 levels of maturity are envisioned, spanning management commitment, engineered flow control, process risk calculation, and global challenges strategies. Descriptive, not prescriptive. It is important to understand that the supply chain risk management assurance framework, by necessity, operates under 3 levels of indirection. First, it is a framework, a basic underlying structure. Second, it promises assurance, a positive declaration intended to inspire confidence. Third, it manages risk through the identification, elimination, mitigation, transfer, or acceptance of factors, sources of risk, and problems that may impede the achievement of supply chain goals and objectives. As a framework, the Supply Chain Risk Management Assurance Framework focuses on the infrastructure of management, engineering, process, technology, and skills needed to acquire, field, and operate trusted, competitive, and austere software-based supply chains with intelligence and confidence. As an assurance mechanism, the Supply Chain Risk Management Assurance Framework validates positive declarations intended to inspire confidence using assurance assertions and levels of confidence. As a risk mechanism, the Supply Chain Risk Management Assurance Framework seeks to prudently assign the disposition of risks associated with factors, sources of risk, and problems, and to calculate the risk associated with supply chain goals and objectives. The purpose of the Supply Chain Risk Management Assurance Framework is not to prescribe or impose supply chain practice or methods. Instead, the purpose of the Supply Chain Risk Management Assurance Framework is to encourage, stimulate, and incentivize supply chain owners and operators to positively and proactively assure the identification, mitigation, transfer, or acceptance of the sources of risk, problems, and factors that may impede the achievement of supply chain goals and objectives. Software and supply chain risk management assurance is the application of risk management principles and practices to reduce uncertainty in the assurance of software-intensive supply chains through the use of software-based smart and trusted tactics designed to deliver consequential outcomes in assuring supply chain trustworthiness, security, resilience, product integrity, coordination, control, and flexibility. Goals associated with smart and trusted software and supply chain risk management include maintaining infrastructure, being trusted, being competitive, and being austere. An industrial strength software risk management practice is one that treats risk as uncertainty, carefully distinguishes risks from the sources of risk and problems, and doesn't use risk management as an off-ramp to avoid actually solving problems. Based on analysis conducted, factors evaluated, sources of problems identified, and problems representing objectives in a failed state, the software and supply chain assurance risk is assigned high risk, driven by the numerous infrastructure factors in a failed state, including austerity risk, software risk, internet risk, and cloud risk. In addition, trust and competitiveness are assigned moderate risk. Setting goals is the first step in managing risk. Goals are attributes to be assured. Goals associated with smart and trusted software and supply chain risk management assurance include maintaining infrastructure, being trusted, being competitive, and being austere. Objectives associated with goals are factors with consequential outcomes. For example, performance, product integrity, mission, resilience, innovation, flexibility, efficiency, control, leadership, coordination, and risk. The Software and Supply Chain Risk Management Assurance Framework spans a wide range of goals, objectives, elements, issues, and factors associated with systems and software management, process and engineering methods, practices, technologies, tools, and skills underlying acquisition and operations. Primarily related to infrastructure, these supply chain risk management factors include supply chain risk management, assurance assertion management, capability maturity model integration, state of austerity, state of software, state of security, state of cloud security, NIST Cloud Computing Reference Architecture, NIST Cloud Service Level Agreements, NIST Cyber Framework. Primarily related to trust and austerity, these supply chain risk management factors include cyber tactics, software assurance, trusted chain of custody, counterfeit and tainted component detection, software product engineering, trustworthy software engineering, technical debt, software project management, earned value management, and fixed price contracting. Primarily related to competitiveness and austerity, these supply chain risk management factors include offshore outsourcing, cost return ratio, next generation software engineering, frequency of release, global software competitiveness, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, team innovation management. Setting goals is the first step in managing risk. Goals are attributes to be assured. Goals associated with smart and trusted software and supply chain risk management assurance include maintaining infrastructure, being trusted, being competitive, and being austere. Objectives associated with goals are directed at consequential outcomes. Sources of risk are objective outcomes whose achievement is at risk and uncertain. Problems are objective outcomes that have failed. Infrastructure is maintained by meeting the objectives associated with software and supply chain risk management framework, risk management, assertion management, austerity risk, software risk, internet risk, and cloud risk. Of these objectives, the following are problems, that is, they are failed objectives: austerity risk, software risk, internet risk, and cloud risk. As a consequence, acquiring and operating satisfactory supply chain infrastructure is high risk. Trust is achieved by meeting the objectives associated with reputation, build security in, completeness, correctness, consistency, software product engineering, quality, technical depth, cybersecurity, cyber tactics, trustworthiness, security, resilience, chain of custody, counterfeit, high assurance, survivability, mission compliance. Of these objectives, the following are problems, that is, they are failed objectives: build security in, technical debt, cybersecurity, security, resilience. As a consequence, acquiring and operating a trusted supply chain is moderate risk. Competitiveness is achieved by meeting the objectives associated with control the workforce, STEM, control customers, control competition, control events, sustainability of wages. Of these objectives, the following are problems, that is, they are failed objectives: STEM and control event threats. As a consequence, acquiring and operating a competitive supply chain is moderate risk. Austerity is achieved by meeting the objectives associated with economics, next generation software engineering, fixed price contracting, software project management, earned value, offshore outsourcing, capability maturity model integration, and cloud computing. Of these objectives, the following is a problem. That is, it is a failed objective: fixed price. As a consequence, acquiring and operating an austere supply chain is low risk. For each goal, the calculated risk is the number of problems divided by factors evaluated, expressed as a percent. Overall supply chain assurance risk is determined by rule. Rule 1. If infrastructure or trust or competitiveness or austerity equals high risk, then supply chain is assigned high risk. Rule 2. If infrastructure or trust or competitiveness or austerity equals moderate risk and not high risk, then supply chain is assigned moderate risk. Rule 3. If infrastructure and trust and competitiveness and security equals low risk, then supply chain is assigned low risk. Where the calculated risk of any goal is 50% or over, it is assigned high risk, driving the overall supply chain risk assignment to high risk. Where the calculated risk of any goal between 25 and 50%, it is assigned moderate risk, driving the supply chain risk assignment to moderate risk as long as there are no high-risk goals. Where the calculated risk of any goal is under 25%, it is assigned low risk, driving the supply chain assignment to low risk as long as there are no moderate risk or high-risk goals. Based on analysis conducted, factors evaluated, sources of problems identified, and problems representing objectives in a failed state, the software and supply chain assurance risk is assigned high risk, driven by the numerous infrastructure factors in a failed state, including austerity risk, software risk, internet risk, and cloud risk. In addition, trust and competitiveness are assigned moderate risk. Supply chain assurance risk is calculated based on the factors evaluated for each goal. A count of factors that might serve as sources of problems in goal achievement, and a count of factors that represent objectives that are in a failed state. Specific findings include: maintaining infrastructure is considered high risk due to the failed or immature state of austerity, software, internet, and cloud. Being trusted is considered moderate risk due to the failed or immature state of build security and technical debt, cybersecurity, security, and resilience. Being competitive is considered moderate risk due to the failed or immature state of STEM and control of event threats. Being austere is considered low risk due to the failed or immature state of fixed price contracting. Recommendations include: supply chain success depends on maintaining an infrastructure of austerity, software, internet, and cloud. Very high priority attention and investment in management and engineering are recommended. Supply chain success depends on being trusted. High priority attention and investment in management, engineering, and process in the factors of build security and technical debt, cybersecurity, security, and resilience are recommended. Supply chain success depends on being competitive. Priority attention and investment in STEM and control of event threats are recommended. Supply chain success depends on being austere. Attention and investment in management, engineering, and process in the factor of fixed price contracting is recommended. Here is my contact information. I would be happy to receive questions and have discussions with people on this important subject.